tonight I brought my son. He wants to share the stage, so. Willst du dich hinsetzen? You want to sit? Huh? Okay, so what I want to talk about is something that is probably a bit less sexy than the topics that we heard before about ecologic topics, but I believe it's also very important, and it's also something that I think should be something that is taken over by the community, which it is not these days. And the topic is about intermediaries. I mean, it's a topic that in crypto is against the whole ideology of like creating a system where we are removing the intermediaries. We have Vitalik talking on this, we have Joseph talking on this, many others. I mean, we all have this belief that there shouldn't be intermediaries. But let me now just explain to you what intermediaries are doing. I'm focusing on stablecoins because this is something that I spend a lot of time on recently, but actually it applies to any kind of market. So let's have a look at what intermediaries are doing in a stablecoin market. So we have an issuer, like it could be Circle, it could be Mento, the protocol that I'm working for. And then on the other end, you have the consumer. And what the intermediaries are doing, for example, we have a broker who is like interacting with the consumer and providing liquidity for the consumer. It can also be an OTC desk. Then we have market makers and exchanges, both centralized exchanges as well as decentralized exchanges. And then we have ramp providers. There are more, but I just like picked up a few. And I'm sure you have been interacting with those, even though you are in a decentralized space. And I like to look at them rather being like a legal entity or a company. I like to look at these as services that they are actually providing. And I want to like explain to you what kind of services these intermediaries are providing. So let's start with the market maker. The role in the distribution system of stables is like he's a wholesaler. He's interacting with a centralized exchange or a DEX. And what is he doing? He's providing liquidity. He's getting the goods from the stable token issuer to the markets. He's also narrowing the spreads. He's absorbing imbalances because the market is moving due to some news. And he's also stabilizing the price. Then we have the brokers. They on OTC desk. They are like in between a wholesaler and a retailer. And I would say they're a bit less important than a market maker, but what they are doing, they are usually enabling less liquid markets. And of course, it's the convenience service to a customer. Then we have the ramps. They are definitely retailers, and what they do, they're connecting crypto with fiat. And then we have the centralized exchanges. And in my view, they have three services that they're providing. There's KYC, whether you like it or not, but I mean, they're providing KYC. They're providing fiat transfers, so like they are in a way a ramp, and they're doing something which cannot happen on-chain right now. They are creating a fiat price. So if you look at the order book, and if you abstract what is happening here, it is actually a price-making mechanism that is going on in the order book. I added another agent, which is not so much an intermediary, but it's a very important service as well. It's the arbitrager. And I like to look at arbitrage similar to like a consensus mechanism. It's like a centralized consensus mechanism. What an arbitrager is doing, they are making sure that the prices at different places converge. And it's kind of like an agreement that a specific good has the same price across different locations. And now, why is this so important? And the reason why this is so important, it's the very unsexy market efficiency. And what is market efficiency? Market efficiency is first a proximity of buy and sell prices. So if you want to buy a good and it's much more expensive than it is to sell this good, you will very likely not do a lot of transactions. But markets are living from being able to do transactions. Then the second one is we want to have the same price across different marketplaces. I mean, just imagine you live on a street, there are 2 grocery stores, and one of them is selling a piece of butter for 3 euros, the other one is selling it for 10. I mean, you would be puzzled. It would kind of deteriorate your belief into the market. I mean, why is this happening? Then you want the independence from the traded amount. I mean, we see this quite a lot. If you buy something on-chain, usually there's a lot of slippage. And it's irritating. I mean, why is the price going up so much? And then, of course, there's market availability. And like what a high market efficiency is cultivating, it is trust in the market. Like these intermediaries through market efficiency are creating a trusty environment. If these 4 features are not to be found in the market, you will not trust the market. You will not feel comfortable to buy and sell because you are just not sure, like, am I being tricked here? Can I sell what I bought? It will leave you puzzled. So this is why the services that intermediaries are usually offering are so important to a market. But why do we want to replace them? And yeah, I mean, my personal view is what intermediaries are granted to be able to perform these services is like a massive amount of privileges. And I think, and this is my personal ideology, I don't think it's good if you give specific privileges to subgroups in a system. I mean, we are actually doing this also on the blockchain. I mean, the validators or the miners, I mean, it's not a random group, it's a group with capital, knowledge, or a very expensive equipment. So, but I mean, that's a different topic, but I usually don't like it. And with the intermediaries, it's very obvious. And with these privileges comes the risk of them performing fraud. And this is actually the history that we have seen in traditional finance. Intermediaries have like abused their privileges. And then there's a third reason, and this is very much related to stables. And if you look at Circle, for example, or Tether, if you want to redeem your stablecoins, you can only do this at an exchange. You will not be able to do this directly from Circle. So the privilege that the intermediaries within the Circle distribution system or the Tether distribution system have is they're the only ones that can actually redeem one-to-one from the issuer. All the others have to rely on the market price. So here's just like a big list of all the different criticisms that I guess there are also even more that can be like listed towards intermediaries. There's a transparency issue. There can be costs that the intermediaries are adding. There is potentially gatekeeping that the intermediaries are bringing into the market. There's no control, inefficiencies, single point of failure, and of course fraud. I mean, we're probably all familiar with these points. So I want to tell you now how the traditional market is trying to deal with this. And the traditional way of dealing with these privileges and the risks that come with giving these privileges to specific entities, it's contracts and regulation, actually. So the issuer usually has contracts with the intermediaries to ensure that the intermediaries are acting on behalf of the issuer. And then there's regulation, which is supposed to protect the consumer from fraudulent intermediaries. And the idea is that the regulation also gives transparency. So in a sense, like what is creating is some kind of legal embedding of the intermediaries. It gives transparency, it gives control, and the second one, it also gives commitment. So it's the commitment of the intermediaries to act on behalf of the issuer and on behalf of the issuer and for the good of the consumer. So now I try to take a little different perspective on this topic, which is like distribution systems. I mean, we all know this. I mean, there are companies that are distributing directly, and there are companies that are distributing indirectly. And yes, I mean, external distribution is basically a system where you are relying on intermediaries. Thanks for the time. For intermediaries. Yeah, USDC, I mean, they have an external distribution system. I mean, they are heavily relying on intermediaries. And then there are direct distribution systems, which is, for example, DAI, Mento, Frax, and others. And there's an interesting correlation, I think. The most successful stablecoins use external distribution. And I don't think it's random. I think it comes from the pressure that people want efficient markets and that people need efficient markets that they can trust in. And even though it kind of is against our decentralized principles, users of USDT and USDC basically accept this violation of the principles because Tether and Circle are creating trustful markets compared to the other markets that are created. Because, I mean, what is the user experience? The user experience is the directly distributed stables, they have no ties into the fiat economy. I mean, it's almost impossible to easily on and off ramp. It's a huge problem. And I mean, maybe you have seen the news. I mean, MetaMask recently added the sell feature. And if you follow this up, you will see that it's basically just a website that is listing a few centralized ramp providers that are offering this rate, this conversion at 7%. And everybody is happy about this. I mean, it's really odd because in Web 2 we are complaining that Western Union is charging these massive fees for the transfers, and then we are applauding to MetaMask for basically introducing the same. But I don't blame people because people want trustworthy markets, and these players, even though they are kind of taking massive fees, they are providing something which is kind of a way for people to get a bit of trust. Yeah, and then the second one is transparency. The problem, I think, is that the oracles that we have these days, they are not able to really provide users with the trust into the stablecoins, for example, with Circle. I mean, if you want to check whether your stablecoins are actually backed, you go to the website of Circle, and there is a PDF document from one of the top 4 consulting companies. And this is proving to you that Circle actually has the funds. I believe that we need better transparency for the user to trust stablecoins. And I think this is something that oracles should do. And the third one, and now it comes to the community, we don't provide an infrastructure for the community to provide these services, like being a market maker, being... You need to go to the bathroom. So we don't provide infrastructure that someone can easily become a ramp provider or to become a market maker. So we focus on what we are good at, building this decentralized structure, building the smart contract, building DEXs, but we don't build infrastructure that people would need to jump in and take over these services. And I know, I mean, these services are unsexy. We think that all these market making, this is somewhat dodgy, but it's not. It's actually something for the good of the community. I mean, someone has to do this. And if we don't do it ourselves, then there will be jump. Then there will be some big company taking over because this is the only way. So, these are the two reactions that I see towards this. I mean, either people are removing intermediaries. This is what's happening in direct distributed stablecoins, and the market is broken. No one is trading them. Or people are outsourcing these services to centralized service providers, for example, MetaMask. And then there is a second group of people, and they think, yeah, you know what? We are just going to build smart contracts that take over these services. But these smart contractors are not able to do that because a DEX is not replacing a CEX. I mean, it's a marketplace, but I told you before, a centralized exchange is also for transferring fiat to crypto, and it's also for price making. And I don't think DEXs are able to make prices as good as centralized exchanges. So what do we need to do? I think we need to provide a better infrastructure to our products. I mean, I'm talking about stables, but I think it's true for others as well. So we need supply chain tooling. We need to make it easy and seamless for a user to get the stable tokens. It needs to have a really good UI. We need to make things transparent. As I said, it can't be that all the information that you can get as a stable token holder is a PDF document on a website. There needs to be something that goes beyond proof of reserve, and I think there are ways to do this. And then I think we need to create engagement in the community to take over these services. And this is, again, we need to create tooling that allows people to do this, and we need to have a protocol design that governs the service providers. I mean, it can't be that a ramp provider can just provide the service in the community and I'm inviting them. I think they have to be controlled and they need to be committed. So what I think we need as a community and as an industry is we need to sit together and we come up with standards for all of this. We need to have standards for the collateral of stables. We need to have standards for the oracles, for the intermediaries, and for the stable value. There's an intricate topic I'm not diving into, but stable coins could be a value transfer protocol in a certain sense, but I'm going to skip that for now. And so to come to the end, I think what we need is, and it sounds a bit like contradictory, but I think we need decentralized intermediaries. And yes, they can't be really decentralized, but I think we can do better than just inviting them. I think what we can do is we can create an embedding in our decentralized infrastructure that allows us to control these centralized intermediaries in a much better way. So for me, a decentralized intermediary is an entity that is like bridging the gap between on-chain and real world, but all the off-chain events have to be locked on-chain. And you need to be able to interact with these intermediaries as if they would be on-chain, like to make them somewhat programmable. And of course, this service needs to be governed by the community and by the protocol. So if a service provider that is somehow embedded in the infrastructure is misbehaving, then there needs to be slashing, or there needs to be penalties or exclusion. And this is phase one. And then I think there is a phase two, but this goes more into a legal direction. The question is, how can I link on-chain and off-chain world more? Because right now what an oracle is doing, it is bringing an off-chain state change on-chain. But I think the same has to happen the other way around. So just to give you an example, if there's a stable token and there are real-world assets backing these stable tokens, there needs to be a link that makes sure that when a token is minted, a corresponding amount of asset cannot be sold off-chain. And the other way around, if a token is burned, it basically, this state change on-chain gives the legal right to sell the asset. There are protocols who are actually trying to work on this, but yeah, I mean, I guess it won't be as good as a decentralized infrastructure, but it reduces the uncertainty that basically comes with the off-chain world. And to be honest, I mean, we are human. We will always make decisions that happen off-chain, that have legal implications, that have financial implications. I mean, just accept the fact that this will always happen, and it's good. I mean, I'm happy to not live in a completely digital world, but I think what we should do is we should reduce the uncertainty that comes with this, and I think we can do this, but we cannot make to remove it to zero. Yeah. Okay, 1 minute then. Quickly, one last slide, just to give you an example how such an decentralized intermediary could look like. This is actually something that I'm working on with one of the projects. It is basically a broker that is acting on behalf of a consumer, and the broker basically opens up the API that is using on the centralized exchange, and all the transactions that the broker is doing are immediately brought on-chain, and then there is a set of validators that are basically checking whether the transactions that the broker is doing on the centralized exchange are truthful. And this is happening on different levels. I mean, first the question, the user was requesting something through a smart contract. Is the broker actually doing that off-chain? And second, there's cross-validation, which means, let's say the broker is selling ETH for Bitcoin on behalf of the consumer. This validation layer can check whether the price that the broker is claiming to trade this for is truthful. Because at the time of the transaction, the validators have access to the order book on the centralized exchange. So they can check, is it likely that the broker was selling, I don't know, like 1 ETH for X amount of BTC? And the brokers and the validators can also check other centralized exchanges. So by having this cross-validation, you can reduce the uncertainty that is around the action of this broker that is happening off-chain. Yeah, so, sorry, I mean, I'm at the end. So there are a few more things to say about this, but yeah, maybe another time or afterwards. Yeah, so thanks a lot.